Oh crap, Wally's lost. Oh geez, the evil red balloons are here too. Pop them. Some doors need keys. Grab the Wally heads for 1-ups. In 2003, Mark Essen, aka Messhof, uploaded Wally to his website, Button Man Games. Wally is a platformer, and about as simple a platformer as you can find. In it, we control the titular Wally, a gangly ant-like figure, to navigate levels constructed from red girders against the backdrop of a sunny blue sky. Wally has several unique characteristics compared to contemporary platformers in the game maker scene. It incorporates momentum, friction, and somewhat realistic jump physics to have more inertia-driven platforming than the likes of Jumper or Seiklus, both of which had instantaneous movement even in midair. As the download page on the Button Man Games website says, it's a fun platformer with balloons and momentum. Hooray! This is a pretty good description, though I would say it might be a bit more appropriate to say, yippee. Wally lifts all of its sound effects from the classic game Lemmings, and this includes the yippee sound effect that plays every time we jump. I'm not saying it becomes annoying at all, but the first level is extremely simple on the surface. Jump upwards, collect red balloons for 100 points each, grab the key, and get back down to the exit. Oh. Yeah. In addition to the other more realistic physics elements, Wally will also pancake on the ground if he gains too much vertical momentum, so we have to be a bit more careful when descending than we may in other platform games. It's actually a subtly brilliant design choice to make the first level require we jump up and then go back down, because if it was designed any other way, we wouldn't be taught the hard way that we splatter on pavement like so many Halloween eggs. Plus, we're even given an extra life right away, so it doesn't feel as unfair to immediately die in a way that we weren't expecting. We can find another subtle design choice in the way that these platforms are placed. You see, we can actually pass through the bottoms of these red girders and land on top, and the platforms here are cleverly placed to make it hard to miss this while not presenting any scenarios that look impossible if you don't know that jumping through them is possible. Again, it's a subtle choice, but one that teaches the players the workings of the game without them even knowing it's happening. Finally, we get back to the locked door with the keys, our points are tallied, and we finally move on to the second level. Help Wally cross the Great Valley of Death. Don't forget to pop those nasty balloons. They were talking about your mom yesterday and said she was fat. You gotta take that? Level 2 does some more subtle tutorializing, this time through the opening level narration. This level introduces bottomless pits at the bottom of the screen. Most games take for granted that the player dies when they leave the bottom of the screen, but Wally decides to go the extra mile by referring to it as the Great Valley of Death. Now, the player, even if totally unfamiliar with platform game tropes, knows that, well, the Great Valley will kill them. It's of death. Again, it's a simple thing, but it serves to make the rules of the game explicit in an unobtrusive way. Also of note is the way the intro narration focuses on the red balloons. This is of course played for comedy, but it's also a fun way of reminding the player to pick up the balloons and giving them an intrinsic motivation to do so, rather than just saying the player will get points for them, which is kind of a nebulous concept and probably wouldn't motivate the player as much. The level itself is again quite short, but contains the previously alluded to bottomless pits, as well as this section which, if there was any doubt at the end of the last level, will definitely drill into the player's head that the red girders can be jumped through from beneath, reinforcing what they've learned already. You'd better believe there's more. By the way, did you hear? One of the red balloons said he could smack you good, pop all his friends. That'll shut him up. Level 3 takes a similar form to the first level, but rather than have the key at the top and the door at the bottom, you must collect the key first, then traverse this U-shaped path to the top, then back down to the door, which is inside of the start. Many of the levels place the exit within view of the start, which is very good game design that sets the player's goal from the very beginning so they never feel lost. This level also contains this long shaft section which, just in case you missed it in level 1, really drills home the fact that if you fall too far, you will splatter on the pavement like a bug on a windshield in the 1950s. Leap across! Yeah, sometimes I run out of ideas. Level 4 is very short and simple. You jump one gap. I find its placement interesting though. We could easily have begun with this level with a simple jump and then gotten into the more complex layouts, but instead the creator decided to lead with the more tutorialized and instructive early levels before presenting a simple gap jump challenge which also ensures that the player has truly mastered the momentum system, and the fact that you must hold the jump button in order to achieve maximum height. This, and actually this entire run of early levels, remind me a lot of the early levels in Super Meat Boy, maybe one of the best designed indie platformers of all time. The slow introduction of mechanics through organic design is highly reminiscent of that game's early levels, including an early, but not the first, level having a single gap to clear in order to really confirm that the player understands the jump physics of the game as a prerequisite for moving forward. Springs, bounce on them, it's crazy fun! In level 5, we're introduced to, you guessed it, springs. This first encounter with the spring is once again designed very intelligently. We are forced to jump on the spring and find that, as opposed to springs in other games that catapult you high into the air on the first bounce, the springs in Wally bounce you up gradually, much as a trampoline would. Then, later in the level, we encounter another spring in a completely different context. This time, we must aim at it from a great height in order to bounce off of it to the high platform where a key awaits. Both these encounters give us a very intuitive understanding of the physics mechanics of the spring, allowing us to use it in novel situations going forward. Balloons, the good ones that you can ride. Hop on, but don't go too high. Level 6 gives us yet another mechanic in the form of green balloons that you can jump on as they rise to the top of the screen. Although this is a fun mechanic, I feel like the opening narration is a bit unsubtle in its way of introducing it to us, especially in comparison to the subtle design of the previous levels. But I also get the necessity of making explicit the difference between red and green balloons, as the player would probably assume the green balloons popped and gave them points without this line of clarification. It also satisfies the need to tell the player that you can't ride a green balloon off the top of the screen without dying. The level itself is quite fun, and the most challenging we've seen so far. This one extra life is especially very difficult to get, as there is only one small balloon that spawns under it, so you have to be very careful in your timing, and it's really easy to lose more lives than you gain here. Climb the moving staircase. Careful, it's icy. We wouldn't want you to fail. By the way, a big red balloon said you suck. He said you're a butt munch. Level 7 introduces another mechanic, iced moving platforms. These platforms move horizontally, but due to the ice, Wally does not move with them, and instead they slide out from under him unless you walk to match their momentum. It's kind of an interesting physics gimmick, and I've always secretly wondered if it was implemented because actual horizontal moving platforms are very annoying to get right from a physics perspective. But that's just a theory. The level is very interesting in the way that it is composed of a long series of the same challenge over and over again, just these platforms meandering back and forth, and us being forced to jump over and over again from slippery platform to slippery platform. It's pretty challenging and honestly quite engaging. After reaching the door, we reach the credits. Yeah, so Wally is really short actually. After 7 levels of what is basically a really well-designed tutorial, the game is over. Kind of. At the end of the credits, we get a message. If we collect all the balloons, we get a bonus level, and if we collect all the balloons in that level, we get to unlock the game's cheats. Let me just go back really quick and okay, there we go. Bonus level, do your best! The bonus level combines several of the elements we've seen in the last few levels. We get a bit with springs, some regular platforming, this part where I think you're supposed to fall all the way back down and bounce off the spring, but in reality you can just jump sideways and get the key, then this final section of hopping down this shaft from rising balloon to rising balloon. It's a pretty good synergy of the elements we've seen so far, but one level is hardly enough to combine all the different mechanics we were introduced to in a way that meets their full potential. Plus, there's the notable omission of the moving ice platforms. After completing this level, we are given a list of cheats: low gravity, ice skates, speedy, and sticky shoes. As the names imply, these all change the game's physics in novel ways, mostly in ways that make the game completely unplayable, but I appreciate them all the same. The ice skating mode especially just makes the game deliciously frustrating, and if there was a speedrun of the game, I would for sure want to see this as an official category. And that's Wally, a very straightforward platformer with well-programmed and satisfying physics and some really well-designed intro levels. The animation is good, including details such as the skidding animation when you're changing direction, and this very charming little speech bubble that says crap when you're falling fast enough that you die when you hit the ground. As previously mentioned, the sound effects range from fine to charmingly grating. The MIDI and background music, also drawn from Lemmings, is mostly just okay, but the track used in the final and bonus levels has always stuck with me as really good. The main issue with Wally, as great as the level design often is that there's not really any build on that. The levels introduce the elements really well, but they never get a chance to work together to their full potential. I just wish there were more levels to explore them to their fullest potential. Ah well, it is what it is, so I guess there's no use in wallowing.